Hello there.
Well, welcome to Your In Depth, where we walk through and break down our favorite fictional universes. Today, we're covering Chapter 6 of the Book of Boba Fett, the second to last episode. With me, as usual, is Evan. How you doing, bud? God, you always got to say something I feel like I have to cut. You have to. It's either extremely dark or just something that I feel like I just shouldn't leave in. So thank you for the extra editing work there. And if you are listening on Patreon, you will be... If you are listening to the public episode and then decide to go to the Patreon just to hear that, you're probably going to be disappointed. But it's an inside joke of ours that we tend to keep out of the public episodes.
I farted.
Anyway. What did you say? Okay. Anyway, yeah, we're covering the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 6. I guess I don't really have anything to say before we get into it.
No.
So let's just get into it. We start off by opening our scene, and we do see Tatooine, and we see a spice trade occurring between some pikes. They're just kind of, it seems like a out in the middle of nowhere drug deal. So they've got like a basket type of thing, whatever that canister is, full of credits, and they've also got a chest that is assumed to be spice. We do see Cobb Vanth approach and talk to them. And I think, yeah, because he hasn't been in Book of Boba Fett yet, right?
No.
He's only been in Mandalorian. So this is the guy who had Boba Fett's armor, if you can remember that. I also love how he talks. This actor it just seems so natural how he like says things. Because like, what was he saying? He was just saying like, right here is Mos Pelgo territory. Now I don't know what kind of regulations they got going on in Mos Espa, or no. Yeah, I think it was in Mos Espa, and let's be honest, in Mos Eisley everything goes. But right here, like how he said it just seems so like kind of, I don't know, it's just, I like him. But he basically just tells them that like, hey, I'm just going to count it. I'm going to count this as you guys being lost and give you kind of a freebie, but this is our territory. You need to stay off of it, is essentially what he's saying. He doesn't want any spice trade going on. He warns them, tells them to get lost, all that. And one of them grabs for their weapon and tries to draw. He pulls his gun and shoots. I think he only shoots twice, but he kills 3 of them. Because I think he hit 2 with the same bullet. Or maybe you just fired off 2 shots. I'm not sure. I may have missed it. But it seemed like he only went bang, bang, and 3 were dead.
No, he shoots 3 times.
He does? Okay. It was
Yeah,
just
the first 2 are like
2.
really quick succession, and like a half second later hits the 3rd one.
Okay.
But it is very like Wild West style, as like as honestly Book of Boba Fett and both Mandalorian have been.
Yeah. But yeah, he shoots 3 out of the 4 of them. There were 4. And the remaining one, he warns, just saying like, I can tell you're the smart one because he didn't draw. And he tells him, just leave the chest of spice. You take your credits, get lost, basically. The Pike comments that, go ahead.
And it was basically like leaving the spice because like, hey, since your friends tried it, that's mine now. Mm-hmm. Like that's payment for them being stupid.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what yeah. The Pike, though, comments that this spice is worth more than his town, and he just replies with, well, maybe I'll retire. And then Vanth approaches it. He opens it up and he kicks it over. He dumps out all the spice. And then we get our title card, Book of Boba Fett. Immediately...
And we get the title of the episode.
We do see the title of the episode. What is it?
Yeah. It is From the desert comes a stranger. Very
Yeah.
Midwest kind of title for the episode.
Midwest. So it's just like a bunch of people walking around going, oh, sorry.
Yep. Yeah.
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 Very
Wild
Western,
West.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wild West.
Definitely like a Wild West kind of title card.
Yeah, for sure. But then immediately we see Mando, and he's going in to, I don't know what planet this is, but he swoops in, and it kind of seems like a foresty type planet.
It's Endor.
Well,
no, it's not Endor.
It's not, but it's similar in a way, but really not. But it's kind of a foresty type. And he comes in and he gets a little ping from R2D2. And there's that communication there. He knows where to land. So he comes in and he lands and he asks R2 for Skywalker. R2 leads them along and they approach an area where a large, like, ant droid type thing are like gathering stones. Now, am I the only one at this point? Did you kind of think that they were like Luke and Grogu were like lifting stones when it first showed up? Because you see this stone just start to lift up and you're like, wait, what the heck? And then you see a droid carrying it. It was almost like misleading intentionally. I feel like.
I think it was intentionally done that way to make you think one thing and then it's like, oh no, it's just a droid.
Yeah. But anyway, there's a bunch of these ant droids picking up rocks and stones and just bringing them onward. We see that they are building Luke's temple, his school.
I mean, honestly, well, because at this point in the episode, we don't know what they're building, but to me, it just looked like some sort of hut, some sort of cabin.
Well, I mean, I immediately figured it was that. It's easy enough, I think, to assume that it's
I
this.
didn't assume. I just thought it was some sort of freaking cabin, honestly.
I see. Well, they're
when I
building
initially
a
saw the
building.
episode. Yeah.
They're building a building.
Structure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so here's my thing though. This might be the structure that we see in episode 8.
Well, that's why I thought that, because I'm thinking back to that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know, man. There's, especially at the end of this episode, I have some what ifs and some things to talk about. But for right now, yeah, I don't know. It might be, but it looks similar. We see Mando again, and he asks where the child is, and R2 just powers down. He's just like, no, and just, goes away. And these little ant droids kind of come in, and I say little, these things are actually pretty big, but they come in and they pick up like a bunch of bamboo shoots and like some stones, and they build a little bench, just kind of being like, it's going to be a while, have a seat.
I would preface too that, like, comparing them to ants, because we're referring to them as ant droids. Yes, they're big, but they come up to like probably knee height. Yeah. For like, I guess kind of like that way. It's not like a misinterpretation. Like they're pretty big, like gigantic. No, like, well, for calling them ant droids, they're pretty big. But in terms of height, they're about, I would say, about up to the knee.
Yeah. But yeah, they build a little bench for him, and he sits down and watches them work. Then we see Grogu and Luke meditating. And right away, Luke looks insanely better than season 2 of Mando. I just got to point that out. Like they did a lot of work. They like adjusted that, and it looks actually pretty good.
Now, honestly, it looks like Mark Hamill from episode 6.
Yeah, they did a very good job.
Like there, at least I didn't notice any of the like CGI or anything like that.
Yeah.
It to me, it does not look CGI'd.
Yeah, I picked up on a tiny bit of disconnect between the speech and the face pattern, but really not much at all. I think that they did very well at that. But we see Luke, and he actually looks like Luke. And as they're meditating, Grogu is distracted by a frog and kind of looks over to Luke to see if he's paying attention, and Luke's still meditating, so his eyes are closed. And Grogu just lifts up the frog with the Force and brings it in, brings it over to him, brings it above him, and just tries to eat it. And he's just about to take a bite, and Luke opens up his eyes and is like, dude, like, come on. And he drops it. And
I do like how
lets
how
go.
these frogs though. I like how they have one eye, like
Yeah.
one eye dead center of their face.
Yeah, like they're
It's like,
just
okay, that's a frog. Okay,
Kinda.
that's Star Wars version of a frog.
right. But Luke then uses the Force to kind of lift, a ton of frogs in the area, and a really weird kind of display. But I think he's showing Grogu kind of like what power he is training to master, kind of being like, I don't know, giving him a comparison, being like,
Yeah,
dude,
kind of
you're
like
not taking it seriously. If you want some motivation, look what you can do if you pay attention.
Yeah.
You know?
I do like too, and I think it's like kind of a minor detail, especially for this show. With just simply the black glove on Luke's hand, on his right hand.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's a minor detail for the show at least, but I do like that they intentionally go out of their way for those kind of smaller things, to keep
which
keep continuity and whatnot.
right. And I feel like if they didn't, though, it'd be kind of a little sloppy, you know?
Yeah.
So, it's for sure good that they do the little things like that. And there's so many tiny details that they do this with, and it's amazing to see. But Luke suggests that Grogu and him go for a walk. And as they do walk, it's kind of funny because Grogu is just kind of waddling along. And then Luke will lift him up with the Force and move him like 10 feet ahead to just kind of keep up with him. So, though Grogu's trying to walk along, he's constantly getting lifted up and moved. But
and I don't know if this is supposed to be maybe some sort of like, because a little later in the episode we do see Luke trying to teach Grogu how to use like Force jump. And I don't know if this is supposed to be like Luke has told Grogu about Force jump, and this is maybe like a kind of expect something like this as they've been walking, kind of maybe getting Grogu used to it in this time, this kind of sense, or if it's purely just to make sure Grogu keeps up. I'm not sure.
I kind of figured it was that one, but at the same time, I don't know.
Because at this point in Star Wars, Luke is the Master Yoda of the universe, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like Master Yoda, nothing he did was by accident or unintentional or did not have a purpose. And I would like to think at least that Luke at this point, nothing that he does at this point is unintentional. Or not unintentional, but nothing he does at this point is like an accident. It's not, like a meaningless thing because he's, trying to rebuild the Jedi Order and all that kind of stuff. So like,
right.
Even something I would think as small as this would have maybe the main purpose is to keep Grogu up with him so he doesn't like fall behind, but I would be surprised if that was the only purpose behind it, because like Luke's got a lot of work to do, he's got a lot of work to do, and this is his first Padawan, and so like he's probably over exaggerating or like going a little further than he probably should when it comes to lessons and that kind of stuff, because he's not really sure how to do it. He had Obi-Wan and Yoda for episodes 4, 5, and 6, but he really didn't spend a whole lot of time with either of them.
Yeah, it's true.
So I did. That's just kind of something that I thought of with something as simple as him keeping Grogu up with him. I would think there's some sort of deeper purpose behind it as well.
Yeah, I can see that maybe. But as they walk along, Luke tells Grogu about someone he reminds Luke a great deal of. Like, you remind me a great deal of someone. And he mentions Yoda. He says that said Yoda once told him size matters not, then winks. Just kidding, he didn't do that. He tells Grogu that Yoda would speak in riddles, and then he asks Grogu if he's heard anyone talk like that back home. Then he asks Grogu, do you remember back home? Would you like to remember? And he kind of helps Grogu remember by placing his hand on Grogu's head and just kind of I want to say kind of clearing his mind a little bit,
Yeah.
helping him remember.
And this is something too, because when I initially watched the episode, I thought he was referring to Grogu's home planet.
Initially, right? I thought that too.
But if you think about it, Grogu's 50 years old. So, and he would have spent the majority of his life all the way up until Order 66 at the Jedi Temple. That's what he would consider home at this point. Grogu, or not at this point, but like his lost home, or his old home.
Yeah, which he probably saw. I mean, he probably saw Yoda, probably Obi-Wan.
Yeah, he probably would have. I would say at the very least he would see Yoda and probably Mace Windu, with the two of them being like the heads of the Order at that time.
Mm-hmm. I would think so.
I honestly don't think he probably would have seen. Just thinking about it now, because I know I've made comments on it before, like while we were covering Mandalorian. I don't really think he would have seen like Obi-Wan or Anakin or even like Ki-Adi-Mundi or
I mean, it's possible though, because didn't Obi-Wan visit he visited Yoda as he was training the younglings.
Yeah, but
I think so. It's like there's like kind of interactions like that where it's possible. Yeah. But
I guess it's possible, but I see it very improbable.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because when Obi-Wan visits the Master Yoda when he's teaching the younglings, those younglings are probably like 5 or 6 years old, roughly. Whereas Grogu, even now, he's like mentally maturity wise, he's not even like 5 or 6 years old yet. And so I would have to imagine Grogu would have been taught like the very basics of the Force for a long time. Would be my guess. Just because of the rate at which he matures.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be wild if Grogu was actually a girl?
I mean, I think it's already confirmed that he's not, because don't they refer to him as he?
Yeah, they do. But wouldn't it be a weird plot twist?
It would be, for sure. But he helps Grogu remember, and we see a flashback of Order 66. Which, speaking of Order 66, aside from our bonus episodes, because I don't count those as our numbers, but this is episode 66 of our podcast.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Anyway, we see a flashback of Order 66, though. We see the 501st storming the temple and just gunning down 3 Jedi. Immediately, I was kind of trying to figure out who these Jedi were. And I did a little bit of research and haven't... It's like there's a potential for who they are, but it doesn't make sense for them to be them. But thinking of something later on, I don't know. So the leading theory that I don't think is the case is that it is Sindralig, Bean, and Y or something, which is like there's one character, and then I want to say is 2 Padawans, and it's like they're iconic for having 2 green lightsabers and 1 blue one, and the guy we see in the middle just get destroyed with shots has kind of a ponytail going on. It kind of looks like the characters, but in episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, we did see them get murked by Anakin, so it's kind of like either inconsistency or it's just not them.
And I would say it's just not them, because Star Wars does a really good job to not add inconsistencies to established canon lore.
I would agree, but I have a comment later on that I'm not too sure of.
And I would also say that it's not those 3 because Grogu and his maturity and stuff and the training he would have to go through and that kind of stuff. I feel like the Jedi would have a dedicated master or a couple masters that like their sole job is training Grogu. I would guess at least they would have a couple, one or one or two, maybe three that have a longer life expectancy or like a longer I don't know what the right term for it is, but like have a longer lifespan. That's what I'm thinking of than like a normal human. You know, to teach Grogu, because especially with him being 50, like his age wise, he's 50, but again, like I said, his maturity and his mental capacity and whatnot is like one. And so, like, if you're to put a human there or to train Grogu, he would be going through human Jedi training him, or a race that has similar life expectancies of humans training him. He'd be going through them like crazy. To him, at least, because he would probably perceive time differently than like people do, just because he lives so much longer.
Maybe. I don't know.
I think I don't know. I just think of like
guys. I don't think it's them.
Yeah,
for different reasons.
But my thing is just like, if you think about it, what I consider logically, right? It wouldn't make sense for them to have 3 Jedi because those 3 Jedi don't just stay in the temple throughout the whole Clone Wars and whatnot. They don't just chill there. They don't, before the Clone Wars, they have missions that they go on as well.
Right, but this is this specific scene. It's not saying that these were the ones who were training Grogu or anything.
Yeah.
It's just that they were there and they were the ones who were getting gunned down.
And
so I don't know.
That would also make me raise the question of, where are the ones that train Grogu? And why are those 3 there instead of the ones training Grogu? I feel like if it were those 3, it'd be a lot of inconsistencies, a lot of questions and stuff like that don't need an answer. I mean, really.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's also like, crap hit the fan. They could have been anywhere, I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know. But either way, what we do see is these 3 Jedi getting shot down by clone troopers, which we get some more freaking. We see clone troopers again in live action too. And these are my favorite ones too. That helmet design, that way. Oh my God.
I see. I love the Phase 2 armor, but my personal favorite is the Phase 1 armor.
Yeah, I disagree.
I love the Phase 1 armor. Phase 2 armor is dope. It's cool. But I love the Phase 1 armor. Yeah, and I mean, and obviously, with there being Order 66 at the Jedi Temple, it's the 501st. The 501st Legion, Anakin's Legion. I don't know about you, but my personal favorite Legion is Obi-Wan's, the 212th. But I know a lot of people are like, yeah, 501st, they're the best. Yeah. Personally, I prefer the 212th.
Well, the clones, they approach Grogu, and then we kind of get snapped back into the present.
Yeah.
And we see Grogu and Luke sitting. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, I expect us to see more of that flashback and probably several others of that time period and where Grogu has been between then and Mandalorian. I expect to see more of those in Season 3 of Mandalorian.
I agree. Or who knows, maybe it'll be spent the entire finale of Book of Boba Fett on it.
Hey, you never know at this point. And I know we're in the middle of the episode, but I feel like this is something I do need to say. Last episode and this episode, I feel like we're in the wrong show.
I agree.
Last episode and this episode, personal opinion, should not have been in Book of Boba Fett.
I'm in full agreement. I enjoy them very much, and I've enjoyed all of this show. I've enjoyed all of it as a piece to the overall Star Wars story. I don't see it fitting very well with the category that they have defined as the Book of Boba Fett, because it is not in any way that.
Now, unless they're planning of merging Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian into one show,
and
which I don't foresee them doing, unless that is their plan, personal opinion, episodes 5 and 6 of Book of Boba Fett do not belong in Book of Boba Fett.
Now, at the end, I will comment. I do see a way where I can kind of justify them using these episodes that they have. Because, I'll just save it. But there's one way that I'm kind of seeing it maybe going, and I can kind of see it as working in that way, but it's very weird and out of place at this point.
Yeah.
But
sorry, like I said, I know we're in the middle of the episode, but I feel like I have to preface that because for the Book of Boba Fett, this is last episode and this episode, they're very odd episodes. They don't really add a whole lot to the story for Boba Fett.
Well, they don't add anything because it was weird. It was like we got up to chapter 4, and it's like, okay, cool. We got some momentum going.
Yeah.
We're caught up to the present. There's some stuff going on. Can't wait for next episode. Next episode. Wait, where's Boba?
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah,
so,
we can elaborate on that more at the end.
Yeah, we'll save the discussion for later. But Luke tells Grogu as they are sitting there that the galaxy is a dangerous place and that he wishes to teach him to protect himself. We then cut back to Mando as he has fallen asleep on that bench. A noise startles him awake, and he draws his blaster at Ahsoka. Ahsoka's there. He says that he wasn't expecting to see her there. She says she's an old friend of the family. She's not training Grogu, though. She asks why he's there, because he's like, why are you here? Or something. And I don't know exactly I forget how it went, but Mando says he's there to see the kid. Ahsoka says that's why R2 brought him to her instead. Mando asks what the place they're at is. She says one day the place will be a great school, Grogu being its first student. Mando wants to know how Grogu is doing and wishes to see him, and Ahsoka tells Mando, she's like, let's go for a walk. And Ahsoka explains to him that there is nowhere in the galaxy more safe than with Luke. He says he's confused as why she's okay with Luke training Grogu when she wouldn't do it herself. She says that it was Luke's choice, I think, right? Or it was his choice, she says, and she doesn't control the wants of others.
Yeah, and I think she is referring to it not being Luke's choice, but Grogu's choice.
Yeah, as soon as I said that, I was kind of like, well, actually...
Yeah, because obviously, in Mandalorian, when we first get introduced to Ahsoka for the Mandalorian show, at least, Mando's like, you're a Jedi, you need to train him, and Grogu had no say in it. Whereas with Luke, Grogu chose to go with Luke, chose to leave Mando behind and go and train with Luke. Whereas, like I said, with Ahsoka, it was more of like a Mando going, hey, you got to train him, and Ahsoka being like, nah. And not consulting Grogu whatsoever.
Mando says it's his choice to go and see him, though. Wait, no, that's not right.
Yeah, Mando says it's his choice to go. It's Mando's choice to go and see him, and Ahsoka says, "Of course, as you wish."
Okay. Yeah, my note was messed up.
At which point, Ahsoka kind of motions over, and they see Luke and Grogu up on a hill as Luke's kind of talking to him.
Yeah. She asks him, though, if he's doing this for himself or for Grogu. Mando says he wants to give him something. Mando says that it's Grogu's right as a Mandalorian foundling to have this gift. Ahsoka says, foundling? Well, perhaps he's a Padawan now. And Mando says, either way, this armor here will protect him. Ahsoka asks if she can deliver it, that Grogu misses Mando a great deal, but if he sees him, it will make things way more difficult for him. Mando thinks on it and decides to leave. He gives Ahsoka the armor. We see Mando take off, and Grogu is we see him reaching out his hand. He kind of senses that Mando's there, and he's like, wait, Dad. And but he's in this little backpack on Luke's back, and Luke sets him down and asks him to jump. and he tries jumping. He jumps maybe an inch. Luke tells Grogu that he needs to feel the Force, that he's trying too hard. He says, "Don't try, do," which kind of seems to call back to Yoda's "do or do not, there is no try"
Yeah.
thing. But then Luke puts Grogu back on his back after he did a little bit of, he tried jumping again, didn't make it. And he takes off running through the forest in a very unnecessary running scene, like when he was training on Dagobah.
Mm-hmm.
He climbs up and they look over the land. He climbs up like a bamboo kind of stick, and they look over the land. And he tells Grogu about the balance the Force has all around them. He says through the Force, Grogu will find balance as well. We then see Grogu trying to balance on a log. It's just kind of like this like fast-paced kind of different scenes of him training and doing this and that. So it's kind of, I feel like I'm jumping all over the place, but I'm also describing what the episode was doing. So it's jumping all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we see that he's trying to balance on, it's a little bamboo shoot kind of thing next. And Luke pulls out his lightsaber and kind of practices with it. Again, kind of seems unnecessary, but I guess he's also practicing training himself as well. We cut to the next scene, which is Luke pulling out a training remote to test Grogu's reflexes. One of the little droids that hovers in the air and fires off blaster shots.
Yeah.
Kind of like that old plug and play game that Evan and I have referred to quite a bit.
I just have to say, honestly, all of these scenes with Grogu's training really annoyed me.
I agree.
Because they're, I personally believe they're out of place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're unnecessary. Like, I like them, but not in this show again.
I'm still kind of at the point where I just don't like them right now. Like, because I think they're so out of place, I just don't, I can't even enjoy them. Because I think they, not even just they are so out of place.
Yeah.
That's just me. But anyways, yeah, he gets the little training droid for Grogu and turns it on.
Yeah, it flies up, it shoots at Grogu's feet and sends him flying back. Luke tells him to always get back up. It shoots at him again, but this time he jumps and just kind of flips out of the way, like really pretty aggressively. And we see Grogu doing the same, but like kind of jumping between rocks as he avoids getting hit by the training remote shots. I want to take this as a quick break, really quick. To have our sponsor break. This episode is sponsored by Luke Skywalker's School for Special Children. Is your child a little peculiar? Do they have a higher than normal midichlorian count? What's the difference between a force-sensitive child and a way past the end of the spectrum little anyway? I'll leave that up to you, but come get the training that you need for your child.
Nice.
Do you know how many sensors I'm going to probably have to throw in that one?
I'm probably going to have to censor the whole thing.
Well, that last sentence, as soon as it starts, I plan on it just or just like beeps nonstop. I think that's going to be the funny part of it. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, meanwhile, Ahsoka approaches Luke. Grogu uses the Force to destroy the training thing, and we see Ahsoka tell Luke that he's training him well. Luke says it's more like Grogu is remembering than he's being taught. Ahsoka says sometimes the student guides the master. Luke and Ahsoka talk about Mando showing up. She gives Luke the gift for Grogu, and Luke says, sometimes I wonder if his heart is in it. And Ahsoka looks at him and says, that he's like so much like your father, kind of in some ways. We see Grogu lay down on the rock out in the water. He's very tired. Luke asks what he should do about Grogu, and Ahsoka tells him to trust his instincts. Ahsoka then begins to leave, and Luke asks if he'll ever see her again. She replies with, perhaps, and then says, may the Force be with you. Luke looks at the gift as Grogu is laying down, and we cut ahead out of that to Mando approaching Tatooine, hopefully resuming our storyline.
Right.
That is the Book of Boba Fett. He approaches Tatooine, flies in, and lands on the underside of Jabba's palace, kind of in that place where they were keeping Boba's ship.
Excuse me, that's
And
Boba's palace now.
it is, but just for identifier sake, I want to call it Jabba's palace. But it is Boba's palace. A Gamorrean approaches and says something. Mando tells it that he is there at the request of Fennec Shand. We then see the mod crew, Boba, Chrysanthemum, the Gamorreans, Fennec, and and Mando getting a briefing about the Pikes. So they're all in a meeting now. We actually see Boba in this episode.
Yeah.
Finally. Not for long, but finally.
For 2 minutes.
They're all getting a briefing on what's going on. Fennec says that they have things mostly covered between Chrysanthemum and Mando, but they need foot soldiers. And Mando says he may be able to help with that. We then see an overview of a Jawa fortress moving, and it has a giant crate dragon skull on top of it.
I loved that. That was hilarious.
It was really funny. And we see Mando fly over it. And actually, too, as we see them, we do see they have little furry hands. It's kind of like after Peli said that, they're kind of making a little bit more of an effort to show a little bit of what they look like. Not a ton, but we see
just
little
have to
furry
assume.
hands.
I just have to assume these are the same Jawas that they got the parts for Mando's ship. You know?
Yeah, more than likely.
Because they even react like they wave to him, like, "Hey, yeah, hi, yeah."
Yeah, they were all like happy to see him and stuff. It's kind of funny. But we see Mando fly in and he lands on the edge of Mos Pelgo. Someone approaches him, telling Mando if he wants to park, he has to do it elsewhere. And Mando says he's looking for Marshal Vanth. The guy gets a little bit confrontational and says, I don't think you heard what I said. Like basically being like, screw what you want, you need to move. And Mando says, I heard you, kind of being like, oh, I know exactly. Like he's kind of, sticking up and getting ready to fight too. And then Cobb Vanth does show up and talks to Mando. He signals at the confrontational guy and he's like, he's new. But almost immediately like gets distracted. He's like, don't worry about him. He's new. Is that is that a Naboo starfighter right there? And start talking about that a little bit. And so they do talk, kind of catch up a tiny bit. Where's the kid and all that stuff. Mando offers to buy Cobb a drink. We see them sit in the bar and talk. Mando explains what's going on, what he needs. He says that there's a lot of credits involved. Mando says they need good people to fight against the Pikes as they'll corrupt the whole planet, essentially. The bartender, too, says that Mos Pelgo is now named Freetown, as they changed it to a more fitting name. Mando says that they're brave people and he could really use them. The bartender says they want no part in it as it's city folk problems. Cobb says Mando and him are square. Mando comments that he didn't take Vanth as someone to back down from a bully. And Cobb says, that's what I like about you, Mando. That big smile of yours lets you get away with anything. And Mando just kind of looks at him. He says there's no easy way to ask for a favor. And Cobb kind of thinks a little bit and says he says he'll see what he can do. We see Mando get in his ship and just freaking take off. So their conversation's done. As he does take off, Cobb asks the bartender to get the word out, gather men and women of fighting age. He wants to have a meeting. Bartender objects, saying it's not our problem, though. And Vanth says, no, but it might be once they hear what I have to say. This kind of makes me curious as to how he's going to phrase it and word it. Because he has run into them already on their territory. Like, it's not like it's a faraway problem.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I honestly, I don't really have a whole lot of thoughts on on some of this stuff right now, honestly.
yeah,
Like,
and that's fine. I mean, there's a lot going on. Actually, there's not. There's not a ton going on. It's pretty cut and dry as to what's going on. But we see Cobb, and he kind of seems to get this odd feeling, and he kind of like looks around, and he sees someone approaching from the desert. Look back to the name of the episode. It was like a stranger in the desert or something like that. And Cobb walks into the street, kind of like looks a little bit, and he tells everyone to get inside. He walks into the street a little bit longer, like further, kind of into the middle, and just waits to greet the stranger. And we see the stranger approach, and the person approaching has a very cowboy look to him. And Cobb's deputy joins him, refusing to go inside. So it's just his deputy, him, and then this stranger approaching. And as the figure approaches further, we see that they have a hint of blue to them. And then they speak. Who is it, Evan?
He's Cad Bane.
It's Cad Bane. And I gotta say, my first viewing, I was like, man, he looks derpy. But as I continue seeing YouTube videos and I watched it a couple more times, I'm like, no, I kind of like what they did. I did see on Facebook where somebody edited it a little bit. Like they used more like, I don't know if it's the same thing as like deep faking, but they adjusted it fully and it looks just so much better. It looks like the Clone Wars. Like it looks like the perfect transition. But this is a really good one, especially for being practical effects and everything. It looks like Cad Bane.
Now, I've said this multiple episodes now, but did I call it or did I call it?
You did call that. And I do want to say one thing I was right on. I called that we were seeing Luke again. I commented on that. Also,
yeah.
for anybody who doesn't know who Cad Bane is, he's a notorious bounty hunter, just all-around outlaw. He raided the Jedi Temple, stole a holocron, did all this stuff. But it's kind of interesting, and I saw it, the breathing things on his cheeks and going into his mouth. He can breathe oxygen. Apparently, there's no problem breathing. He has a tube inserted so he can't be force choked. Or something like that. I thought that's what somebody said, but it's kind of interesting.
Because back during the Age of the Republic and whatnot, Cad Bane was known as a bounty hunter that could take on Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And like Jango Fett. Jango Fett, widely known bounty hunter and whatnot, but like as we saw in the movies and stuff, like he really can't handle a Jedi too well. But like Cad Bane,
decapitated by one.
Cad Bane can hold his own very, very easily against your, average Jedi Knight and whatnot.
Yeah,
and even some Jedi Masters.
We in our Clone Wars coverage where we just left off, I believe, is where we're seeing that. With Cad Bane. I believe that's exactly around the point where we're at. But yeah, looks like him. But we don't see, he's got that signature like tilted head look to where you don't see his eyes, and he's just sitting there, and he says Cobb Vanth, and like I did a horrible impression there, but like I love his freaking voice. I love it. But he says Cobb Vanth, and Cobb is like kind of like, I don't believe we've met kind of thing. And Cad continues saying, whatever Fett is paying you will match, and all you've got to do is stay put. And the deputy speaks up saying the marshal ain't for sale. Cobb replies with, now he says, I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. He then, Cad Bane then looks up and we see the signature glowing red eyes. Cad Bane says, I'd be careful where I was sticking my nose if I were you. Cobb replies with, and I love how Cobb handles all these things, because he's just like, is that friendly advice or a threat? And like,
Yeah.
I don't know. But Cad says Boba Fett is a cold-blooded killer who worked for the Empire. And Cobb says, you tell your spice runners Tatooine is closed for business. This planet's seen enough violence. Cad then tells him you never should have given up your armor, which is kind of interesting that he knows this,
Right.
you know? But he then lowers his hand over his pistol, and we get this really just stare down, like what's going to happen next. Finally, we see Cobb look over to the deputy. His deputy draws, Cad draws, shoots Cobb, then fires off 3 shots into the deputy. Just a very quick draw. Not a single shot was delivered from Cobb Vanth or his deputy. It was just Cad going bang, 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 and just murking him. Which I will point out, and we do see kind of some significance that or some kind of indication that Cobb is not dead. Townspeople crowd around him here in a little bit and are like, somebody get a med pack, get a stim, like that kind of stuff. But I slowed down the frames, and it's clearly a shoulder shot.
Yeah.
So not only, that could prove fatal. You never know with how crap goes, but it's pretty obvious that I'm pretty sure he's not dead.
Yeah. Well, and this too, though, just gives credit to Cad Bane, though, this encounter, because not 10 minutes earlier in the episode, we see Cobb Vanth take out 3, or maybe it's a little further back than that, but, in this episode, we see Cobb Vanth take out 3, pikes by himself.
Yeah,
very quickly and very easily.
Very quick draw.
Yeah, and so, the fact that Cad Bane can get those shots off without either of them firing a shot, just goes to show how lethal and how deadly he still is. Because it's
honestly,
like,
at this point, think about the timeline wise. He's like early 70s. He's like, I don't know what the lifespan is of his, species and whatnot, but like he's not exactly young.
Right. Because I mean, at the very least, because if you go back to Clone Wars, right, where we see him in Clone Wars, you could say he's probably mid-20s at the earliest, and that's pushing it. Probably in his 30s. He's got plenty of experience. He knows what he's doing. He's confident, And so even if you say mid-20s, we're still looking at him being, 40, at this point, probably late 40s, early 50s. If he's in his 30s, you're looking at, mid-50s, early 60s. Because we don't know how old he is during the Clone Wars. We really can't get an accurate, age for him. But, I mean, regardless, like, 20, 25 years later, for our next time actually seeing him, he's still just as deadly, just as accurate, just as savage as he has been.
But Cad announces Tatooine belongs to the Syndicate. As long as the spice keeps running, everyone will be left alone. Then he walks away. And this is when the townspeople kind of run to Cobb. They ask somebody to call a doctor, someone grab a med pack, grab the stims, and so much other stuff. And so shoulder shot, more than likely they're trying to bring him back. We then cut ahead to 2 pikes carrying a credit container, and they're entering Garsa's sanctuary. They sit down, and a droid approaches them and asks if it can get them anything. They decline. Then the 2 Twi'leks approach and ask if they can take their helmets for a cleaning. Again, they decline. Then the pikes get up and walk away, leaving without their credit container. And Garsa kind of watches them leave. There's a freaking stink bug flying around. Anyway, the pike, they get up, they walk away. Garsa watches as the pikes leave, and behind her we see the little droid, and he picks up that credit container and he goes, "Oh wait, you forgot your Camtono."
Yeah.
And then just everything explodes. We see like the outside of her building just erupt in flames. They clearly just walked in and left a bomb.
Yeah, she dead.
There's no way she survived that one.
Yeah, I mean, even if someone tried to argue, well, you didn't see her die. Okay, well, the time between them walking out and us seeing the explosion is like 5 seconds.
Not even.
Like,
Not
where is she
even.
going to run in that short amount of
She's
time to survive that blast?
she's dead.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it would be so. Yeah, I don't think that she's alive. And if they bring her back, they need to have a good reason. Like they need to come up with something just phenomenal. Like right
Yeah.
as she was like, as it exploded, a waiter like walked by and blocked most of the fire. Even then, I don't see it.
No.
But like, there's got to be something. Because no, she did.
Like, she would have to have
Um,
some sort of freaking shielding device as like a bracelet that she activated at the last second that survived her from the flames and the intense heat and the shockwave for her to be
yeah,
alive. And
very
that is
unlikely.
just, yeah, that is so far out, like so out of the Star Wars universe that no.
No, she did.
Yeah.
We then cut to Grogu and Luke again. They are in that little temple / school that has been built. It's done now. Luke pulls out the gift for Grogu and reveals a little chainmail Beskar shirt.
It's Mithril.
It is. And he says the Mandalorian wanted Grogu to have this. But before Grogu takes it, he has a choice. Luke then pulls out a little box and from it grabs a lightsaber. He says, or you can have this. It was Master Yoda's. Luke is offering it to Grogu, but he can only choose one.
Which I think is a really piece of move of Luke.
So, I agree.
Like,
Yeah,
screw
no,
you.
I agree.
In this instance, I'm sorry. I'm going to go off here for a second because this pissed me off. All right? Like, screw Luke. At the very least, just in this moment. Like, screw him. Like, you're going to make a freaking child choose between a lightsaber and Beskar armor from basically his father at this point?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's not a great move.
no, like if anything, you should give him both. Like, okay, now he's got a lightsaber. He can train with it and learn to protect himself. He has the armor, so if he's not skilled enough to protect himself with the lightsaber, the armor might save his freaking life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was really pissed off about this scene here, and this really, oh my god, like.
Yeah, I wasn't too happy with it either, but he says if he chooses the armor, he'll return to his friends, the Mandalorian, and he will be giving into attachment to those he loves, forsaking the way of the Jedi. But if he chooses the lightsaber, he will be Luke's first student in this academy, and he will be trained to be a great Jedi. It will take many years, and he may not see the Mandalorian again, because a short time for Grogu is a lifetime for someone else. And then he says, which do you choose? Grogu's kind of looking between the two, kind of like, oh, dang, I don't know. And as he's trying to make up his mind, the episode ends.
I'm just saying, if Grogu doesn't take the freaking shirt.
So, that is the end of the episode. Now open discussion. Here we go. Okay. The two things I see happening and how I feel like it would probably go is really just whether or not we're acknowledging the sequels as canon.
Yeah.
And continuing them. Because if Grogu takes the lightsaber, he is now Luke's first student, not Ben Solo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that could rewrite the events of, the whole sequel trilogy. However, if they want to keep those, he's going to choose the shirt and go back with Mando.
Yeah.
So it's like, crap, what is he actually going to do? My theory, and I'm super, this is biased, and there's a lot of hope behind it. But I just because of the different rumors that we've heard already about them potentially rewriting the sequels, and kind of doing something different timeline, all that. I'm hoping that they go that method, and what I'm thinking may happen, and it makes sense to me, whether or not they take the approach, I think it makes sense. The last episode, this episode and the last one makes sense because it's all build up for the finale. In the finale, Grogu chooses the Beskar. So, okay, you're no longer you're not going to be my student. I'll take you back home. Takes him back home to Tatooine. A war's going on. Luke joins the battle. Everybody's fighting. There's a bunch of crap going on. They win. Grogu looks to Luke and he's like, kind of understanding the importance of this training, and is like, okay, I changed my mind. I want to go with you. And then he goes with him, freeing up Mando for season 3 to do his own thing with Mandalore. And then Grogu trains with Luke. He's no longer, he is Luke's first student. And then we go onward and a whole new story unfolds. I don't know. That's what I'm really hoping for. I at least hope that's, because I think that's how they would get Luke onto Tatooine. Is if Grogu, now, whether he changes his mind and is like, yeah, I would actually like to be with you, that part's purely hope. But I think he's gonna decline the lightsaber and choose Mando, and then Luke's gonna have to take him to Tatooine, and then he's gonna be involved with a fight there.
See, I see something different happening.
Yeah, what do you see?
The events that you said, I can see those happening all the way up until you say Luke enters the battle and fights alongside. Mm-hmm. What I could see happening is Luke showing up after the battle is over.
Oh, maybe.
You know?
Yeah, maybe that too.
And Grogu still goes with Mando. Is kind of what if this were to happen at all, that's what I would foresee happening.
And if that did happen, actually, I can see that being a good ending point to Book of Boba Fett because it just alludes to season 3 of Mando.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now they're reunited. Onward. That's not what I hope happens, really. But
at this point, I hope Grogu takes the freaking shirt because Luke's being a little bag.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he takes the shirt, but I hope that he also eventually takes the lightsaber too somehow. I don't know. But here's the other thing that I was kind of questioning. There is a book or a comic. It was the very first issue of the Vader comics. In that, we saw all lightsabers gathered from the Jedi Temple and smelted in a giant cauldron as the Empire being like, death to the old ways, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing all the lightsabers. And they made special note, here's Yoda's, and threw it in. That is canon. That book, that comic is canon. But now Luke has Yoda's lightsaber? So either the Book of Boba Fett was, I think it just retconned that little detail. I mean, that's what makes most sense. I think that's what they did.
Well, I would say what makes most sense for that is the Empire saying this one is Yoda's as a political
I think that one makes sense too, but it draws question.
Yeah, well, because
one of the theories I did see was like, well, why wouldn't they just make one and be like, this is Yoda's because of the significance that we're to have, And so maybe it's not. Well, and because but
the Empire, once the Empire rose and whatnot, Palpatine goes to great lengths to obviously discredit the Jedi and whatnot, and starts terrible rumors about the Jedi, especially like Mace Windu and Yoda and Obi-Wan, the Masters, the Jedi Council, the specific members, turning them into the bad guys, making them the terrible people that he wants them to be, as a political point, as a strategic point to win over to ensure that he still has the faith of the people type of thing, right? And so if this were something where they're throwing in all these lightsabers of the Jedi, saying this is so and so's, this is so and so's, this is Yoda's, that could purely be for political purposes, because who's gonna know that whether that is Yoda's or not besides a member of the Jedi Order?
Yeah, but I mean, that sort of thing was more so like, I feel like that detail was aimed at the reader, not necessarily, the.
Yeah,
But
that
I
and
can see
also
it for
too
sure
though.
being a fake,
Well, that too, and I just thought of this too because in Episode 3, with the fight between Sidious and Yoda, Yoda loses his lightsaber.
Well, right. I mean, because
Unless
he's
Yoda
separated
reconstructed
from it,
a new one after he left. And that
and
raises the
maybe that's the
question, where did he get
case.
a kyber crystal? Where did he get the components for it? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. There's some questions. This seemed odd because of that. Obviously, it can. There's ways that it could be taken that it's like, okay, though this makes sense. Like he retrieved his lightsaber, they used a fake one, like to just for the pure significance of throwing that in the cauldron. However, or this episode was just like, yeah, let's just never mind about that. Which they could have done also with the 3 Jedi. I don't think that that's the case, but it was just kind of an odd trio to like throw in there if it wasn't a reference.
If that's what they're doing, where they're just like, get rid of that, they're not taking stuff away from just the comics.
Well,
or
right.
just
In that case,
the
they're
TV
not.
shows. They're taking it away from Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
In that case, with the Jedi, yeah.
Yeah, they're taking that stuff away from Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. It's not from just comics or just a
Right.
specific episode of the TV shows or anything like that. It's from the movie itself.
And as far
Because
as
Yoda does lose his lightsaber in Episode 3 when he's fighting Palpatine. He gets knocked down and he loses it. We don't see him recover it.
No, but just because we don't see him doesn't mean it didn't happen. But it just kind of raises question regardless.
Yeah.
So I'm unsure about that. Like I said, with my potential conclusion of the book of Boba Fett, like my prediction for it, or at least my hopes for it, if that is how they take it, I can kind of justify them using these 2 episodes, because they're not the best tie-ins, but they would build towards that because they're kind of significant. I think they still overdid it, but it ties into if they were to do that. Because it's like, if it's not like they can stick on Tatooine and then all of a sudden Luke shows up with Grogu. It's like, well, what? And so it's like, you kind of got to see what's going on. I don't really think we needed to see a montage of his training, but I don't know.
We didn't need a full episode of Mando.
We did not.
We didn't. Just plain and simple, we did not need a full episode of Mando. We did not need another episode where 75% of it has nothing directly, at least right now, to do with Boba or Fennec or the events of Tatooine.
Yeah.
Because 75% of this episode was either Mando or Luke and Grogu. And
Yeah.
I also have to say, personal opinion here, the voice acting in this episode was...
I do agree with that. Other than Cobb Vanth and all them and stuff.
The only good dialogue I thought was in this episode was between Cobb Vanth and Cad Bane. That is and it really upsets me to have to say it, but I think that is the only good dialogue they had in this whole episode. The rest of it all just felt forced or overdone or underdone. It didn't seem to flow at all.
No. I see that too.
And
especially
granted, I've enjoyed the show all the way up until this point, but I was genuinely disappointed with this episode.
I had a lot more questions than disappointment, but it was a little more underwhelming.
Yeah. Like I said, personally, I was genuinely disappointed with this episode. Which sucks because they have so much other stuff they could have shown. They could have shown what Boba's doing right now during all this stuff going. Like, instead of showing Mando for all of last episode and then 75% of this episode being Mando or Grogu and Luke, they could have showed what Boba's doing at this time to, raise, to get an army, to get his troops. What steps is he taking to counter the Pikes and all that kind of stuff? What are the Pikes doing to try and stop Boba?
Right. And which, with this episode, judging where they're at, doesn't really seem like they've done a whole lot.
Exactly. It seems like they've done nothing.
Yeah.
Which does not sound like Boba or Fennec. Like Boba and Fennec, from what we've seen and what we know of them, come up with plans. They make arrangements. They do side deals, that kind of thing, to get the upper hand, and we've seen none of it.
Yeah. I fully anticipate next episode being a over an hour long one, just because I think they need more time to just somehow conclude this.
Yeah.
But even then, I just don't know how they're going to do it.
Yeah, because now we need some sort of explanation of what happened with what's his name?
Yeah,
Cobb Vanth. Yeah, we need some sort of explanation of what's going on with him. Is he injured? Or how severe is he injured? Is he going to participate in the fight? Are his people going to participate in the fight? Or are they going to be too scared now after seeing one guy take out their marshal and their deputy? So what are they going to do now? What steps has Boba and Fennec taken? What steps is Mando taking to help him out? And now because they've thrown Luke and Grogu into it, we're gonna need some sort of explanation. What was Grogu's choice? Like throwing this episode, and not so much the last episode, but a little bit of the last episode, but mainly this episode in the way they did, is now requiring them to answer so many questions that they did not need to. That did not need to be asked. Yeah.
The other way I can see it taking is Cobb Vanth is in recovery. His bartender dude steps up and's like, no, this ain't our battle. Because he was already against it.
Yeah.
Or he makes the decision, I suppose, to enter the battle.
Yeah, more like, okay, they've killed someone, part of someone of our town. They've injured our sheriff who keeps us safe. We need to do something about this because now it is affecting us, type of mentality.
Yeah, it's either a confirmation like, needing to join it, or it's like, no. I also hope we see it. I don't want Cad Bane to die, but I also do want to see that live action like face off of that unaired Clone Wars episode between him and Boba. Kind of want to see that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think Cad Bane will die.
Probably not.
I think
I don't want him to.
He's too iconic of a character at this point to just have show up for the end of one episode and be killed off the next. I think he's too iconic of a character.
Yeah. I don't know where it's
maybe
going.
Too beloved of a character, because there's a pretty big fan base out there for Cad Bane. Now, whether he dies later on, I could definitely see, but I don't see them doing pops up at the end of one episode, dies the next. I don't see them doing that purely because of the fan base, honestly. And because he's just too iconic of a character at this point, with all the times because you see him quite a bit in Clone Wars. He pops up every, a decent amount in Clone Wars, and yeah, it's. I'm too. I'm too upset with this episode to try and really give a good conversation.
Well, with that, then, how about we go ahead and end the episode? There's our thoughts on it. There's my prediction. There's Evan's stuff, But yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping that it ends well, but it's just there's some interesting elements to it that kind of make me question how well it'll end.
Yeah. One last personal opinion, I personally would be upset to see. Personally, I would be upset to see Luke participate in the fight.
Yeah.
Because again, I don't think it makes sense because Luke and Boba would be at odds with each other. At the very least, Boba would be at odds with Luke because Luke is the reason he ended up in the Sarlacc pit in the first place.
Right. And it's not like, I mean, freaking bug. The only reason he would participate is maybe because of Mando, but even then they're not exactly close.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it would just because of the link of Grogu, which then it's like, is that really enough to, I don't know.
The only reason I could see for a genuine reason for Luke to participate is to protect the people of Tatooine.
Yeah, and maybe. I mean, that's the...
Now that's the only genuine reason I could see Luke intervening in some way. And even then, for the purposes of the Book of Boba Fett, I don't think that fits in the story of the Book of Boba Fett.
No, and again, neither do the last 2 episodes. Let's end this episode 66 of You're in Depth. Thank you for joining us. If you've listened this long, we have rattled on for a little while and complained and just talked for way too long. But thank you if you have listened. If you want to hear more or just hear the slew of ridiculously offensive things I said in our ad, please go on and check our Patreon out. You can get uncensored episodes for one of the tiers and early access episodes for the other. So check that out. Support us if you're interested. Other than that, check the link in the description to see all the many links that we're on. If you want short facts and just kind of short form videos, check our YouTube channel out. Other than that, leave us a review because every 25 Apple reviews, we are going to do a live stream. And we also do blooper reels. How many downloads do we need for that, Evan?
Every 1,000 downloads for them, their blooper reels.
Yep.
I don't know how close we are.
We're maybe 200 away.
Okay. Roughly 200 away from the next blooper reel, so keep the downloads coming so you guys can get that next one for your listening pleasures.
Yep. But other than that, we'll see you next time in whatever we cover. But next episode of Book of Boba Fett should be our finale of it. So join us as we wrap it up and express our thoughts on it. I'm hoping that they're better.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Till then, peace.
Goodbye.
Deuces.